What's up, YouTube? Today I want to do a deck tech on one of my favorite commanders, Akiri Fearless Voyager. Akiri is a 3-mana, 3/3 Boros commander. Whenever you attack a player with one or more equipped creatures, draw a card. You can pay 1 white and unattach an equipment from a creature you control. If you do, tap that creature and it gains indestructible until end of turn. So Akiri is a little bit of a value engine in Boros for equipment style decks. She's pretty interesting because she doesn't really care too much about Voltron like a lot of equipment commanders do. She's more of a go wide equipment commander, which I find really interesting. And equipment is one of my favorite archetypes in Commander. So I really enjoy this deck, and I've built this deck as soon as Akiri came out. And yeah, I've been tuning it, and it's one of my favorite decks, so I will warn you, it is not budget. So yeah, let's get into it. We'll start off with some of the mana rocks, because that's how we ramp in Boros. We have a Jeweled Lotus, a Mox Opal, because we have plenty of artifacts, a Mana Crypt, a Soul Ring, Talisman of Conviction, Boros Signet, Arcane Signet, and Ornithopter of Paradise. This is a little slow for a mana rock, but obviously it's a creature, and we can throw equipment on there and start attacking if we need to get some value, so it works pretty well. Next, we'll go into our creatures. And like I said, Akiri cares more about going wide, so we have a pretty good amount of creatures. We'll start off with Esper Sentinel. This has been one of my favorite cards since it came out in Modern Horizons 2. A 1-mana 1/1 that draws you cards when your opponents cast non-creature spells unless they pay X, where X is his power. So obviously we're going to be buffing this guy up with some equipment to make him harder or make it harder for your opponents to pay for that tax. He draws a lot of cards. He's a lot of fun to play with. Definitely recommend it for any equipment deck. Next we have Fervent Champion, just a 1-mana 1/1 with First Strike and Haste. And the ability we care about is here, equip abilities you activate that target Fervent Champion cost 3 less to activate. So he's just really fast. You can attach equipment to him pretty much always without paying their cost. So yeah, start getting that value as soon as possible. Next we have Dockside Extortionist. Obviously, great card. We're just ramping, getting a bunch of treasures. And then if we get extra equipment, we need to swing in with it. We can equip them up and start attacking. So works pretty well. Stoneforge Mystic, just to grab an equipment. A lot of times we're going to get the new Cauldron Complete and then just use this bottom ability to place it onto the battlefield. Really fun to ramp them out on turn 3 doing that. So my build focuses a lot on Hate Bears to suit up with equipment. So we have Hushbringer. This is just to stop those Aristocrats decks and your ETB decks. They get a lot of value really quickly, and so this is here just to shut it down. Next we have Pure Steel Paladin, probably one of the best creatures in the deck. You draw cards when equipment enter the battlefield, and you can pay 0 for equip cost as long as you have 3 or more artifacts. If we can tutor up, we have a couple cards that tutor up creatures. We're almost always getting Pure Steel with those creatures. They're so good. Yeah. Next we have Aethersworn Canonist. We don't mind only playing 1 spell a turn, and we're playing a lot of artifacts anyway, so often we can play more than 1 spell per turn. It slows our opponents down, puts them on our speed because we're using a lot of our mana to equip our equipment. So this just kind of puts everyone onto your speed, and it also stops a lot of those Spell Slinger combo decks. Now we have Drannith Magistrate. This stops, obviously, your opponents from casting their commanders, but it also stops people from casting cards from exile, such as with Prosper or with any Cascade. So this is a really useful card. A lot of people hate playing against it, but hey, it's part of the game. Grand Abolisher. This is just going to protect our turns, especially the combat step. We hate getting blown out during combat from whatever tricks our opponents have. So this just kind of helps mitigate that. Recruiter of the Guard. As I said, we have a couple creatures in here that can grab other creatures. This is one of them. A lot of times we're going for pure Steel Paladin, or we're going to get whatever Silver Bullet Hate Bear that we need. We have Archon of Emeria. Again, you can only play one spell each turn, and this also hates on non-basic lands. They enter tapped, so just slowing our opponents down a lot more. Magus of the Moon. Pretty straightforward. Non-basic lands are mountains. Aven Mind Sensor. This is just to stop your opponents from searching their libraries. Imperial Recruiter. Another one of those creature tutors to get whatever we need at the time. Linvala. This shuts down a lot of obviously activated abilities, a lot of mana dorks, or certain commanders have activated abilities such as Kenrith. So pretty good. Doesn't come up as often as some of the other ones, but it's still a solid creature. 4 mana, 3/4 flyer. Perfect to suit up with some swords. Armored Sky Hunter. This is just going to help us cheat out some equipment and throw them onto our creatures. It's not the strongest card, but it's really fun. I definitely recommend it if you're playing equipment decks or aura decks. Pretty good one. Next we have Brunor Battlehammer. This is just to beef up our attacks, and we also get to cheat an equip cost once per turn. So a solid include for any Boros equipment deck. Next we have Sun Titan. This is going to get back pretty much any of our hate bears and most of our equipments. So yeah, Sun Titan works perfect. I know he's been kind of phasing out a lot of decks. People aren't running him as much. 6 mana is a lot, but I think in the right deck, it's still very much worth it. Next we have Godo. Obviously a pretty straightforward include for equipment decks. This can be part of a combo with Helm of the Host, which I'm not currently running, but I am working on getting. And then finally, Aurelia, the War Leader. Again, this is a pretty solid card for any Boros deck really, but equipment as well. You're getting double sword triggers when you're getting extra combats. The value just gets insane. So this is probably one of the best bombs that we can drop late game. Next, we'll move on to the equipment. Now, I built this deck because I love swords of X and Y, so I run most of them. I know they're not always the best option for your equipment deck, but I just think they're awesome, so I put them all in here except for the blue-green one. So first we have Sword of Light and Shadow. We're going to get 2/2 protection from white and black. And then when we deal combat damage, we can gain 3 life and return a creature from our grave to our hand. So it gets back our fallen hate bears. Sword of War and Peace, 2/2, protection from red and white. When we deal combat damage, we get to deal damage to that player equal to the number of cards in their hand, and we gain 1 life for each card in our hand. So it's not the greatest, but it's fun, and protection from red and white is actually really good. A lot of red likes to burn, and white has some really good spot removal, so it's actually really good protection. Next we have Sword of Fire and Ice, obviously one of the best ones, 2/2, protection from red and blue, and then we get to deal 2 damage and draw a card whenever we deal combat damage. Then we have Sword of Truth and Justice, 2/2, protection from white and blue. Whenever we deal damage, we get to put a 1/1 counter on a creature we control and then proliferate. Now, it doesn't really fit the theme with counters and proliferate, but it does get out of hand once you get 3 or 4 damage triggers with this. Your creatures start to get really big and really scary, so it's still fun, and protection from blue and white is good. Then we have Sword of Sinuan Steel. We're going to get 2/2 protection from black and red. Whenever a equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, we get to destroy a planeswalker and up to 1 target artifact. Notably, you don't have to destroy an artifact and planeswalker from the person you're dealing damage to. So you can hit whoever's open or whoever can't block and then just start destroying stuff on the field. So pretty good removal that's very thematic. And next we have Sword of Hearth and Home, 2/2 protection from green and white. And when we deal damage, we get to flicker a creature and we get to search for a land and put it on the battlefield, basic land. So most of the time we're going to try and get this if we have our creature tutors with Imperial Recruiter or Recruiter of the Guard, so we can start flickering them, or with, what's her name? Stoneforge, yes. Stoneforge, really good with that. Start flickering her, or flicker Dockside and just get tons of mana. So there's a good amount of targets for that flicker, and obviously ramping is always good in red and white. And we also have Sword of Feast and Famine. Again, probably one of the better ones. 2/2 protection from black and green. Whenever equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, they discard a card and you untap all your lands. So more ramp and a little bit of hand hate. And protection from black and green. That's a lot of the good creatures in Magic, so pretty solid. Next we have Commander's Plate. 3/3 protection from each color, and that's not in our Commander's color identity. So we're going to get 3/3 and protection from Sultai. We'll take it. Sword of the Animist, 1/1. And whenever equipped creature attacks, we get to search for a basic. So a little bit of ramp, a little bit of buff. And with our commander, we'll draw some cards. Mask of Memory. This is just for more card advantage. Whenever we deal damage, we're going to draw 2 and discard 1. Colossus Hammer. Equipped creature gets +10/+10 and loses flying. Now the equip cost of 8 is hefty, but we're going to try and cheat it out and skip that cost as much as possible. And 10/10 is pretty huge. And we have Black Blade Reforged. Again, the equip cost for non-legendary is a lot. A lot of times we're going to go on Akiri here, but if not, we're going to try and cheat that cost with some of our various ways of cheating equip costs. And 1/1 for each land you control adds up very fast. And Cauldron Complete. So when this enters, we get a 0/1 token, or a 0/0 token, sorry. And we equip this to it. So equipped creature will get 5/5, first strike, trample, indestructible, haste, and whenever this creature deals combat damage to a creature, exile that creature. And notably, this is also indestructible itself, so it's harder to remove. And like I said, it's really fun on turn 2 to grab your Stoneforge Mystic, put Cauldron Complete in your hand, and then use Stoneforge Mystic's activate ability on turn 3, and you have a turn 3 5/5 indestructible with all that fun stuff on it. So that's just a little synergy there that I like to point out. Next we have Hammer of Nazan. Equipped creature is going to get 2/0 and indestructible. Hammer of Nazan will auto-equip to a creature when it enters the battlefield. And then all of our equipment from then on will do the same. So this is another way for us to cheat equip costs. Really solid card for equipment decks. Swiftfoot Boots, Hexproof Haste. I run this over Lightning Greaves because I don't feel like dealing with the Shroud and not being able to target my creatures with other equipment when they have Lightning Greaves. So I chose Swiftfoot Boots. I know it's a little worse, but it's less of a headache later in the game. Cliffhaven Kitesail, we're just going to get some evasion and it will auto-equip when it enters the battlefield. So pretty solid, cheap little equipment. Loxodon Warhammer, another staple, 3/0 trample lifelink. I will say, lifelink in this deck is huge. We're always going to be attacking regardless of pretty much what's going on to get as much value as possible. So lifelink just helps to mitigate that crackback. And then Shadow Spear, pretty much the same as Warhammer, just a little bit more of a compact equipment. And also we can get rid of Hexproof and Indestructible for a turn to remove problem permanents. So yeah, a really good card. Next, we'll go on to some of the removal. We have Fateful Absence. Just compact, destroy a creature or planeswalker. Its controller investigates instant speed. I chose to go for more efficient removal instead of more broad, like destroy target permanent. I just think I like to have more compact. When we're spending a lot of mana on equipment, we want our removal to be as efficient as possible. Dispatch, tap target creature. If we have Metalcraft, we get to exile it instead. We pretty much always have Metalcraft, so pretty easy include. We have Path to Exile, another staple. Red Elemental Blast to hate on any of those blue decks, which is a lot of them. Wear and Tear can destroy an artifact and an enchantment. Chaos Warp. Now this is one of the ones where you can destroy or get rid of any permanent. It's a pretty much a staple for anything red. Swords of Plowshares, again, compact, cheap removal. Then we have two board wipes. We have Blasphemous Act and Vanquish the Horde. I will say a lot of Akiri decks seem to go somewhat of a board wipe tribal because of that activated ability where you can unattach an equipment and make your creatures indestructible. I get what they're trying to do there, but I think it's just too much mana, too much of an investment, and too much of a fairyland scenario where you're just gonna be having all your creatures equipped, and then you're gonna pay for a board wipe, and then you're gonna pay one white for every creature to save them all. I just think that's a little bit of a trap. When it happens, it's great, but it doesn't really come up often enough for it to be viable to really start running 5, 6, 7 board wipes in your Akiri deck. And equipment decks are usually pretty, they're usually hurting for card slots anyway, because you have to devote so much to equipment and to creatures to equip them to. So I don't think board wipe tribal is really a great option for Akiri decks, but that's just me. Then we have some protection. We have Boros Charm. Now, yes, Akiri does protect our creatures, but these are just a little bit more efficient. Boros Charm for 2 mana will protect all of our permanents. Teferi's Protection, that's just going to protect our life total and everything we have. Blacksmith Skill. This is going to be usually used for our equipment. They become targets very fast, so we want to protect our equipment with this. If Akiri's not out, we can use it to save our creatures, but I run it for protection of our equipment. And Akroma's Will. This card is insane. If you have your commander out, you can win games easily with a pretty simple board state. Just getting all those keywords: double strike, lifelink, protection, flying. It gets out of hand really fast, and you can also use it defensively to protect your board, so it's really solid. Next, we just have some various other utility cards. We have Open the Armory, simple, grab an equipment, put it into our hand. Savine's Reclamation, basically Sun Titan triggers on a spell. It gets back most all of our permanents. And I will say this is a perfect card when we're facing mill. Now, having one card against mill isn't the best, but when it gets milled and it has flashback, you can just start using it for value, which is kind of like a little gotcha against mill. Aggravated Assault. We're going to use this with our Sword of Feast and Famine to get infinite combats. And it's also just a good card all around. But yeah, you can go infinite with Sword of Feast and Famine untapping your lands, and then just continually making new combats. Fighter class, another equipment tutor, and then when we level up to level 2, equip abilities cost 2 less to activate, which is exactly how much it costs to equip swords. So when we get this out, we want to try and level it up right away. Just from then on, we don't have to worry about really equipping that much. And Sigarda's Aid, we can cast our equipment as though they had flash, and then they will auto-equip when we cast them. So a really good turn 1. Later in the game, it's kind of meh because you already have played most of your equipment. But early in the game, it's a really good draw. So yeah. And we'll go over some of the lands just real quick. Arid Mesa, Sacred Foundry, Spectator Seating, Temple of Triumph, Fury Calm Snarl, Battlefield Forge, Needle Verge Pathway, Rugged Prairie, Clifftop Retreat, Command Tower, Ancient Tomb for some ramp, Inventor's Fair, pretty good utility, gets us a little bit of life, and if we really need to in a pinch, we can grab a artifact from our library, so pretty good utility. Darksteel Citadel, this is just an indestructible artifact land we can use to help get us Metalcraft really fast. Buried Ruin, just to get our fallen equipment. Command Beacon, in case Akiri gets shot down too many times. Ancient Den, another Metalcraft enabler. And then we have quite a bit of plains. We're really heavy on white. And then I think only 6 mountains. I run 35 lands total. So yeah, that's pretty much my Akiri deck. I hope you enjoyed it. It's a you know, it's a little bit of a high power deck. It's not super competitive, but it does have ways to win pretty quick. Like I said, I am going to include the Helm of the Host combo once I get Helm of the Host in. But yeah, we usually win with combat damage after slowing down our opponents with Hate Bears, or we can go Voltron if we need to, or we can combo with Sword of Feast and Famine and soon to be Helm of the Host. So yeah, that's gonna do it. I hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching and stay tuned for more. Bye.